Welcome to episode number 247, where I'm speaking with Dorothy, who's French but living just outside Amsterdam. And she talks about her journey with Ayurveda, in particular talking about adapting Ayurveda to her busy life as a new mom and how she felt lighter emotionally, psychologically and physically post-cleanse, and how letting go of perfectionism was a real valuable lesson for her. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. I'm your host, Colette, and I hope to educate and empower you to take charge of your health and well-being, preventing disease in the body and mind so that you can thrive in life. I will be sharing the holistic teachings of Ayurveda, which is the ancient healing tradition from India. Now, if you're new to Ayurveda, I recommend listening to the first couple of episodes where I do an introduction to Ayurveda and the mind-body types. And if you like the content, please be sure to subscribe or follow the podcast so the new episodes will automatically download for you. Also, you may want to check out my private Elements community, which is away from social media. It's a safe space for like-minded people to come together, to connect, to share, to support each other, and to continue the conversation from the podcast episodes. Check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and just click on the community tab. And I hope to connect with you there. Thanks for listening. And now here's a new episode. This episode is sponsored by Kerala Ayurveda. If you're an Ayurvedic professional and want to improve your skills supporting clients in their journeys, check out Kerala Ayurveda's continuing ed programs. Topics include case discussions, formulation making, assessment and pulse diagnosis, Vedic formulations, and more. Study in person and via live streaming, and students from all schools are welcome. To learn more and save 10% in an upcoming program, visit keralaayurveda.us/courses and use the code ELEMENTS, and you'll find all that info in the show notes. Hello and welcome back to the Elements of Ayurveda podcast. Today, I'm very happy to introduce you to someone I have worked with over the last couple of years, Dorothy. Hi, Dorothy.
Hi, Colette. Hi. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, Dorothy, for coming on today and chatting with me. And again, people love these conversations and hearing the individual journeys. So, Dorothy, I'd love to start with if you could introduce yourself to the listeners, please.
Of course. Actually, today I'm turning 40.
Hey, happy birthday.
Thank you. And I am actually French, but I live in near Amsterdam in a small town. I have a very cute little baby of 10 months old, and I'm a passionate dancer and yogi. And I think that's definitely what led me to discovering Ayurveda, and to you, of course.
Yeah. So did you discover Ayurveda through yoga?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you first come across it? Was it in a yoga class?
I did a 200 yoga teacher program, during which we had some introduction about the doshas and so forth. I had a bit of interest into it, but I had never really had or taken the time to dive deeper. But I really wanted to, because I thought this is really part of the big yogi journey, right? So, I really wanted to dive a little bit deeper, and I am still diving. And I think that's Ayurveda is going to be a lifelong journey because there's so much to.
Yes, indeed, it absolutely is. And that's what makes it so interesting, that it is constantly learning and also evolving as we age as well. And our needs and what we have going on in our life changes as well. So yeah, it's constant, which is a beautiful thing, I think.
Yes, absolutely. I think it is. I really enjoyed I mean, this is not just the food, but the definitely the part that is about eating. It's been it's difficult because you have to really learn how to cook very differently and so forth, but wonderful.
Yeah. And so you got in touch with me first in January 2021, right?
Yes,
During
I
COVID.
did. Yeah, exactly. That was for me the perfect right time to finally get to do that, try a cleanse of some sort. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
Ayurvedic was going to be just a very nice setting. I also really enjoyed the fact that you were guiding through it, that we were eating, but specific food that were quite specific for us. I was not really interested in something where you just stop eating for X amount of weeks. And yes, a week before we were supposed to start, I figured out I was pregnant. So there was a bit of a delay.
That's right. Yeah. Because we had gone through the private consult and we had set everything up for you and tailored the cleanse to you. And then,
Yep.
yes, you contacted me. You're like, we have a bit of an issue here. So absolutely, when you're pregnant, you should not be cleansing. So we put it on hold.
We did. I was in no shape to do that anyway because I was really ill. But
Yeah.
and then of course I didn't realize I would have to wait so long because then you have the whole breastfeeding part. But
Yes.
yeah, we made it
We
this year.
That's right. Yeah. And also just let people know that no cleansing either when you're pregnant or breastfeeding, because you're putting a lot of toxins into the system. Of course, it's all going through the baby in the womb and also through the breast milk. So that's very important. No cleansing during those times. So we waited until all that was done. And
Yeah.
then you got back in touch in March 2022 this
Yes,
year.
indeed. Yeah. So,
Great. And so you're ready to join the group cleanse then
yes,
after breastfeeding.
I found that, yeah, it was, I really wanted to get to do it, to get to experience it. And, I mean, I had to make room for it, but actually it worked pretty well.
Well, that's the thing, Dorothy, because it was very different. The tailoring of the cleanse is very different from January 2021 to March 22, because you now have a baby, you're still waking up during the night, you were still very tired, you were just starting back work, isn't that right?
Yes,
around that time?
yes.
So
Indeed.
there was a lot of things pulling on your energy, so we really had to tailor it to make it as simple as possible so that it wasn't going to be overwhelming for you.
Yeah, indeed, there were a couple of elements to it that were too challenging for me. I would have loved to integrate them, but like the early morning wake up, considering the hectic sleeping schedule I had, was a bit too difficult, and I wanted to really make sure I could get rest as much as possible.
Exactly. So yes, so those morning hours were all just about rest because again, you were still waking up in the middle of the night with the baby. So we had to just shift the dinacharya around and also change the dinacharya or the self-care practice to really fit in because your day was hectic. We could see like baby and then work and there was a lot going on.
The day was definitely led by the baby schedule.
Yes.
Luckily, I was only working half time, so it was not so imposing on me. But of course, it's all very. It adds up to it. So
right, and you were still working from home at that stage, right?
Yes, mostly. I don't think maybe a couple of times I would travel, but not that much.
Yes, exactly. Which was great. I mean, if anything, it was a great time, having a baby during that period where you were very much at home and nesting was great.
I had the most wonderful pregnancy. I was very chill. There was nothing to do besides whatever I really loved. And it was calm. And I have a very happy boy, and I like to say that the fact that I had a very relaxing pregnancy was really helpful to that.
Absolutely, because your constitution is Vata Pitta. And in January 2021, when we spoke, there was a lot of Vata, right? There's a lot of Vata imbalance going on. And
there's always a lot of Vata imbalance going on.
But then during the pregnancy, the fact that you were, there was conditions we had to stay at home was very soothing. So it was a wonderful time for you to be pregnant because you were more stationary than you would normally be.
Yes, indeed. And to be fair, I mean, I had made a conscious choice to really take care of myself, and live calmly, and not be no external things that could really like trouble me during that time.
Right.
And I think it was very beneficial. And now that I think of it, I should apply this all the time.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So let's talk about your experience on the cleanse. Like I said, we
Yes.
tailored it. Baby boy was the priority, of course, and making sure that he was taken care of. And then you were taken care of too. And that it was a lot about rejuvenation as well.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your experience on it.
Overall, it was really a wonderful experience. For me, I had my partner was cooking most of the meals.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really nice and helpful to have someone to back me up.
Yes.
I think it does matter in the process. He was not a big fan of the food, but I really enjoyed it. So for me, it wasn't very difficult to adapt to that particular part. Mm-hmm. Because I found that the meals were very enjoyable. So there was no difficulty in missing anything. And I think we talked about good fat, or it was in your podcast. And and indeed, it's eating good fat, as I don't know if that's a direct correlation I'm making by mistake, but I don't need to eat sugar that much anymore. I mean, I don't have the cravings that I used to have around 4 p.m. for something a bit sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the good fat really keeps you satiated longer, and it helps so you don't get that energy crash. So it keeps your energy consistent. And the fact that we had consistent meals throughout the day, so you had your 3 meals plus the 2 little snacks in between, that was very important, because we wanted to make sure you were, well fed and not going hungry.
Absolutely. And so that created a sort of a peace of mind. It felt great to my body. My body worked really well during that whole time. I didn't have a lot of issues with limiting coffee and other more industrial products, because I had to wind down on that. And I'm not a huge coffee drinker either. I have 1 or 2 in the morning, but that's it. Mm-hmm. And I replaced it with something you had recommended, and it worked as well. The rhythm of the day was a little bit more challenging for me, but it's not because of the baby, or it's because of my vata, pitta, everything. It's just I'm always a little hectic. I have too many things to do, and keeping a rhythm can be a little bit difficult for me. Mm-hmm. But I tried, and it worked. I adhered to the meal times. Eating earlier was also much better. I still do that as much as possible. I've kept quite some habits actually from those 3 weeks, so I intend on doing that again going into winter.
Okay, good.
And at the end of it, I had a sense of lightness. Like I felt lighter, like emotionally, psychologically, physically lighter. So overall, for me, it was a great experience. I have a very close friends from India who are very curious about me doing this. And some of them find this quite funny, actually, that I go and do this stuff, because their moms just cook like this all the time, and they're kind of like, oh, enough with it already. But so I still do the bliss balls. Me and my little boy really love the stewed apples. We eat that almost every morning.
Great.
Very nourishing, and I really try to keep that. For myself, it was really like hot food, soft, and I in the summer now it's a little more difficult sometimes because like salads are more inviting. But I do still eat a nice bowl of rice with stuff in it, and so on.
Yeah, that's great. And that's it. You learn through the process, like you said, the good fats earlier, what is good for your body, and especially with, high vata constitution and they had a tendency towards vata imbalance, that mushy, warm food with good fats, well seasoned, is really important for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And I had lots of issues with constipation a long time for a long time. And it really did a wonder. So I was eating the right food. My body really enjoyed it. I could feel much lighter in many, many ways.
Yeah, that's right. Because when we first talked, you had constipation. Also, there was digestive issues as well, and skin concerns too, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And how's your digestion feeling now and post cleanse?
Well, post cleanse was great. I mean, the thing is about keeping the habits, and so I invested in a Ayurvedic cookbook.
Very good.
But it's like I said, it's a step-by-step process. It's very far from me, from the way I would normally regularly or learn how to eat. So I try to make some more recipes and learn on the go, and it's definitely much better. And if I'm careful to really not eat what I shouldn't eat and to eat according to those principles, I feel great.
And the good thing about the cooking, I mean, it's nice to get an Ayurvedic cookbook, but you can also just, the principles for your constitution type. Like I said, warm foods cooked with good fats should be moist and well seasoned. So that could be any food. And you have your, the food list, the 80-20 food list I gave you. So what to eat 80% of the time, and what are the things that you limit like 20% of the time. So it's not really about cooking Ayurvedically per se, but just the general principles about what is best for you, and you sound like you really have a good idea of that now.
Yes, much, much better. Yes, it was a long process of learning, but I think I found something that's really, very suited.
Yes, because I think when we first spoke, you were eating a lot of raw, right? There was a lot of snacking on crudité and hummus and things like that. Which wasn't so great for your vata.
Yeah, exactly. And in the process also, I understood that, things like, of course, bread, dry things are not good for my digestion, that eating earlier is better because then I'm hungry in the morning, which things like that, which definitely work.
And you had cut out rice for a long time, right? And then the reintroduction of rice, you were like, oh my goodness, it's been so long, and you really enjoyed it again.
Absolutely. And I eat rice all the time now.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in here for a moment, because if you're listening to Dorothy's story here and you're inspired to take care of your health and well-being, learn about your constitution and how to feed it right and how to have a good lifestyle to keep your doshas in balance so that you can thrive, well, you may be interested in my upcoming discounted group digestive reset cleanse that's starting September 2nd, 2022. This cleanse comes with a 90-minute online consult with me, and then I will tailor the cleanse, the recipes, the yoga, the pranayama, the self-care practices to you and your lifestyle. And then you'll join a group of international folks, and we will go through the cleanse together in a private forum on my website, and we'll support each other and hold each other accountable. So the group discounted cleanse starts September 2nd. If that date doesn't work for you and you still want to do a cleanse, just choose a private cleanse on my website by going to the programs tab, and you can choose your own dates. Just visit my website, elementshealingandwellbeing.com, and for the group cleanse, just click on the events tab. I'll also put the link in the show notes. I also want you to bring another note from one of our sponsors, Mount Madonna Institute. Expand your knowledge of Ayurveda with Mount Madonna's mini course offerings, which can be taken online or at their beautiful mountaintop campus overlooking Monterey Bay. The mini course offerings include Ayurvedic anatomy and physiology, diagnostic methods, pathophysiology, Ayurvedic psychology, and classical text, history, and philosophy. Visit mountmadonnainstitute.org to discover all the details on these programs, and you'll also find that information and link in the show notes. Okay, let's go back to my conversation with Dorothy. And so after the cleanse, because you had signed up for the Reset, Restore, Renew program, which also includes, after the cleanse, we did a follow-up call, and then you go into the Daily Habits for Holistic Health program. that 28-day online program. So can you share with us a little bit about your experience on that?
Yes. It's a great learning journey as well. It's a very different focus from the cleanse. I was not able to really complete it the way I wanted, because then I got caught up in a new work thingy and so on. But I'm not giving up just yet.
There you
and
go.
I still really need to, I would like to work on my daily routines and my living more according to the circadian rhythms and so on, have a better morning routine. But I'm also being patient. I know that it's this year is quite intense, so I'm step by step.
That's a very valuable lesson there. And I think especially as the Vata tendency is to take on a lot and and to get into overwhelm, which doesn't serve you. And so you mentioned to me previous to the recording that there's a lot of things going on this year, a lot of new projects and work and so on, and still have a young baby at home. So it's about, doing what you can, and there's a time for everything, and knowing when to back off certain things, to give yourself some room and space to make sure that you don't become overwhelmed, right?
Yeah, indeed. And sometimes, because of the way the societies we live in, it's really hard to combat that.
Yeah.
But it's so beneficial. I mean, in many, many ways for me, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's so important for all of us to look at our boundaries, because you're right, society. And then if we're in jobs that don't have good boundaries, they expect us to be, available all the time. It's up to us to set those boundaries and to not spread ourselves too thin, and to help, so that people understand that what's okay and what's not okay. And what you accept, and in particular when it comes to work, like your set hours, and then even with friends, like making sure that you have healthy boundaries, that you're not being drained of energy.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, indeed. And I think in that regard, for someone with my constitution, COVID was very good, because it forced us to learn and to experience that there was another way of living, and that actually that way was also very, very, very good for us, for me. And so that was very helpful. Now it's about finding a new balance between the new, our renewed social lives and so forth. And for me, finding a new balance with work, because I don't want to be submerged in work 15 hours a day. I want to enjoy the little one, and I want to have time for myself. That's because it's also very important to me. I know that as a Vata person, like when I have too much stuff in my head, I need to say stop and take a break and go back to something more mindful and clear up my mind and go in nature, do some activities. It's a matter of then, practicing it.
I love it. And there are such valuable life lessons. And like you said, during COVID, you got to feel what it's like to have a less hectic schedule. Yes. And to feel that Vata really pacified. So it's beautiful now that you felt that, and you felt it, post cleanse as well, to feel physically and mentally and emotionally pacified. And then to try maintain that as we now get back into normal life, right? Things start to come back. And talking about, mentally, emotionally, how did you feel during the cleanse? I remember when we first spoke, there was a kind of, there was a bit of that Vata fear coming up, a fear of change, I recall at the time.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it quickly evaporated, to be fair. It was just taking on the cleanse and what it required in terms of preparation and so on. I thought that's going to be a lot, considering everything that's going on.
Yes.
But I think we quickly get a hang of it, and in the end, also, as you built the way you built the cleanse, there's some repetitions. You don't have to spend 50,000 hours in the kitchen preparing your meals at all. So
Exactly.
it goes quite
Exactly.
fast.
Yes. Yeah. And we wanted to make sure that it wasn't overwhelming for you and that it was nourishing for you as well, because we know that postpartum, after having given birth, it's a very vata aggravating time, and our vata can really be heightened. And also there can be some depletion in the body as well, especially as you're breastfeeding too. So we wanted to make sure it was very nourishing for you. And it was lovely that not only were we making sure the food was nourishing and nurturing, but also that your partner was supporting you in cooking, which is great. So you had a great support at home as well, because of course you were still taking care of baby and, heading back into the work.
Yeah, indeed. I think having someone who backs you up and helps you out definitely helped a lot.
That's great. And so how has Ayurveda changed you, Dorothy, and the way you live your life?
Like I said at the beginning, it's a slow journey because there's a lot to discover within Ayurveda, and I want to do it well. So I'm thinking, okay, let's learn slowly but surely, like one little spice at a time. But it's also the rhythm of my days, and the benefits are huge to me because it makes me more peaceful. I feel better in my body, so you can move more freely. It's a holistic feeling to be if I can describe it that way. Of course, it is not always easy to live that lifestyle when you live in a European society and when you work. Even if now I work for myself, I still work for a company. It's not forever, but you have some constraints in your day that sometimes do not fit perfectly well, but it's okay. We adapt.
Exactly. And that's it. It's about adapting to your lifestyle. And that's really important and letting go of the perfectionism of having to have it look a certain way, because there's no certain way. There's just guidelines from Ayurveda, but what works for you, and not being too rigid about it, and knowing when, life is constantly changing. And so being able to adapt to those changes and having flexibility. And then when we're eating out, like not getting stressed about following these certain rules, just going with the flow and adapting and doing our best. And I think that's the best way to live, because it causes less stress and less overwhelm. And the more you can be flexible, the easier life is.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I mean, I tend to have that perfectionist thing. So if I'm doing, for example, if I take on Ayurveda, then I need to do it perfectly. But no, I've really done some exercises and trying really hard to kind of like say, no, let's just take it one day at a time and learn one thing. And this is how you actually can also make it more robust to the long term.
Voila, exactly. And then you're making shifts in your lifestyle rather than this temporary, really disciplined, highly focused thing. It's like, I'm just going to weave this into my day and into my routine. And it's just going to be something that becomes autopilot.
Yes, absolutely.
So important. So Dorothy, before we finish up, is there anything else you'd like to share? Or if you have any advice or tips for the listeners, please use this opportunity to share anything you wish.
I don't have any particular thing on top of what I just said, except that it also is a very well suited for babies. I use some ghee in what I prepare, and I cook the stewed apples the same way that I cook for myself, and he absolutely adores them.
That's so great. That's so good.
And sometimes I'm like, you're eating all my apples, and I don't have anything left.
Well, that's wonderful. It's great that, this food is baby friendly too.
Of course.
If you have little ones at home, and I found that even with families, like we can easily adapt the food to make sure you're not cooking 2 meals. And it's very easily done. You just cook the spices off separately because the kiddos don't want the spices. And we can adapt to anything. And that's it. Don't be afraid of the change. And we want people to experience this because we want people to experience their, body, mind in balance, so that they can really thrive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Dorothy, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time today to share your journey with us. And it's been a pleasure working with you and seeing all these life changes as you go along. And your little boy is absolutely adorable. You sent me a photo and he's absolutely gorgeous. And I wish you all the best. And hopefully I'll see you soon as well. You said you're going to join the next group cleanse. That's fantastic. A bon anniversaire encore, and have a wonderful celebration today.
Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you, Dorothy. And I will talk to you soon.
Yes, very much soon.
Okay. All the best for now. Ciao.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed that conversation, and thanks again to Dorothy for coming on the podcast and sharing her story and how she adapted Ayurveda to her changing life. And if you think that this episode will be helpful to family or friends, please share it with them. If you haven't already subscribed or followed the podcast, please do so wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you would like to rate and review the podcast, I would really appreciate that. Don't forget, I have the discounted group cleanse coming up September 2nd. And if that date doesn't work for you, you can choose your own dates by doing a private cleanse. You'll find all the links mentioned in this episode in the show notes. And you can also find me on social media, on Facebook and Instagram under Elements Healing and Wellbeing. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, please take good care of yourself, be well, and bye for now. Slán go fóill.